moon.
Hello there, this is Jack for That's No Moon. Today we are going to paint the Bad Batch. So these have just arrived, quickly got them built, quickly primed them. They're going to fit into my Rebel army, so for that we will be painting their Season 2 style armour. So I've got my reference image there. Now, there's a lot of different things going on with these. So each panel seems to be different in colour. There's different undercoats going on with like the undergarments. So like looks like Hunter's wearing sort of a tan undershirt. Tech's got some jeans on by the looks of it. The only one we're going to do in actual Bad Batch colours is Crosshair. I won't spoil why, just in case anyone's not seen it, but he'll be done in his Republic era with the red, just to make him stand out from the Rebel squad. So we're going to have to tackle these individually. So we'll start off with the leader of the batch, which will be Hunter, and we're basically going to have to just start going at it. So, looking at the reference image, we've still got that sort of greyish armour going on. It does make it a little bit more complicated that he doesn't seem to be wearing thigh armour or forearm armour. So what we'll do there is we'll just keep them as Republic style. So anything that's missing on this image we just get to fill in. So everything else will have to be grey. Yeah, let's get cracking. So, what grey should we start with? Let's start with something a bit dark. So what we've done is we've done a Zenithal Prime. Let's look at a petroleum grey. So, Zenithal Prime, so I've primed it black, and you can see there's sort of like a variation, because I've sprayed white from above. So the main reason I do that is because for the guns I use a contrast paint, which naturally shades it, saves us messing around too much. So let's start off with petroleum grey from Scale Colours. It's quite a dark one. We're just going to slap it all over. Let's go for a big brush. Dampen up the brush. So, the only place we don't want this to go is on the shoulder pads by the looks of it, because they could be white and blue. And we won't do it on... No, that looks like everything. So just the shoulder pads we're going to miss. Put paint down so it applies a bit easier. If we can, we'd like to avoid the gaps in the armour. Just so that you can get that tan colour on nice and even. Let's go around the boots. If you're using these scale colours and you thin them down, because they're already quite watery, you may need to go over with just 2 coats, which will give you a nice even colour at that point. So that's not a problem. So yeah, we're just going to continue to do that. I won't make you watch it because this could be quite a long video because I've got to do it for everybody. So what I'll do is I will do this across the whole batch because they're all going to be the same colour, and then I'll show you when we come back. Okay, so we've covered everything in the petroleum grey. So we did Crosshair, Wrecker and Echo. we've left Echo's droid arm so that we can hit that with contrast. The only one I didn't do was Tech, because he has got white armour, so we'll be doing him separately, and obviously Omega's not wearing any. So next step is I want to bring that up to more of a grey, because this is quite a browny grey at the moment. So what I've done is I've mixed in a tiny amount of Scale Colours brown grey, and then I've started adding graphite. So that's going to bring it more towards the grey end of it. And I've just done a heavy dry brush over Rekka, just to bring it up to where we want it. You can mix up some more. You might think that's quite a big dry brush to be using. Someone told me a rule once that use the bigger dry brush that you can. That way, you get the better results. So, heavy dry brush over everything. Try and miss all the bits you've left white. It is going to be quite difficult when you're dry brushing, but we can tidy it up later if we need to. Done. So what I'll do is I'll just do Crosshair and Echo, just get them done. You'd have to sit and watch me do all this, but that's basically what we're going to do. And then after that, I'm going to do a majority lighter dry brush of graphite everywhere, so that leaves some of the darker colour in all the recesses and sort of the joins in the armour. That way we get the grey look, and then we can go over it with a wash and bring it back up again. So see you in a minute. Okay, so we've covered in head to toe the lighter version of petroleum. I've just done Hunter to see how it looks with the graphite. Let's get under the light, that would help. So he's a lot paler. We're going to put a wash over him anyway, just to bring the details back out. So unfortunately I haven't listened to my own advice about maintaining my brushes. These are quite firm. So just going for another heavy dry brush. Maybe not quite that heavy. Basically you just want to hit anything that's going to catch the sun. So anything that's up facing. Try and not give yourself some harsh boundaries. will struggle to get onto things like Wrecker's Chest if you're using a big brush. But do some twisting and you'll get sort of like grey scuffs. You just want to make them look like they've seen a bit of action. So I'll do that for Echo and Crosshair, and then we'll come back when we do the wash. Okay, and that step's all done. So Crosshair probably came out the nicest in that process. It's come up quite nicely there. Yeah. So that's what you should be left with. I'm going to slap a bit of a wash over it, just to darken the features down a little bit. Bring out the panel lines, the gaps in the armour a bit more. Just slop it on. You don't want this to pull up anywhere. So make sure you're moving it around until it's evenly distributed. Don't leave any gaps either, because it will show quite badly. So you can see a couple of patches there starting to pull up. So just go with a damp brush, wipe it away. Just move it all down to where you want the shadows to be. We're going to go back over it anyway, so it's not the end of the world. I know I said leave his shoulder pads alone. Don't listen again. Don't listen. Okay. So we'll do that for the other three, and then you can join me again. Okay, so now that we've brought that back up to a lighter graphite, as you can see here, we're going to go in and do Hunter's undersuit. So I've got three colours for this. We're going to do a little bit of Rainy Grey, a little bit of Walnut, and the majority of it's going to be Thar Brown, which will then highlight up to a pure Thar Brown, and that'll give us this sort of tan undercoat. So a little bit of that, a little bit of that, and a lot of that. A bit more walnut. And that's about what we can do. And what I might do is just take a little bit of black, just to desaturate it. So we've got that. Okay, and we're just going to very carefully go into all these crevices. I do apologise if I haven't been doing anything on camera. I have to put the stand for my phone here, but my light is like here, so I naturally paint there. Let's try and move it a bit closer. I do like to get the palette in as well. That's better. Perfect. Does make the makes it a bit awkward to get your arm in the palette, but we'll persevere. So we just do the rest. Apologies that you sat in silence. Concentrate on keeping a bit of a steady hand on these bits. I do want to give credit to Tom, because if he hadn't have painted his in the sort of mercenary Bad Batch colours, I would probably be teaching you how to paint a Republic Bad Batch. But seeing as I'm playing Rebels at the moment, this seems more appropriate. For it a couple of times. Cool. So that's the gist of it. I will just do the other bits and then we'll come back. Right, so we've gone back in with the unsaturated mix just to bring that up to sort of a greyish walnut colour. And we're going to go in with just Thar brown. Make sure it's thinned out nicely. Some of these can be quite thick, these paints. And now I don't mind seeing some paintbrush marks on this part, just because it helps to sell the illusion of fabric. If you can see some shadow through it. Just a little flicks of your brush tends to help with that. So we've got a bigger surface here. Just layering that, it's going to give you that tanned fabric look. Okay. And on this side. Obviously we want to leave some of the darker, more unsaturated colour underneath. Give you that shadow look. lastly the arms. So you'll notice I've not done his hands. That is because in the reference image he has sort of like a tealy, bluish green set of gloves on. So we'll be replicating that as well. With some deep sea blue tones. And the last piece. So, with this done, I would be happy to leave that where it is. It's quite a minor detail on the figure, there isn't that much to see, save for this bit around the back of his thigh. So we're just going to make sure that that's well covered. Just like that. And there we go. I've got a tan undershirt for Hunter. So just wash the brush. I do find with these sort of tan ivory colours from scale colours, they do stick in the bristles annoyingly well. Cool. So next bit we're going to go for is his legs. We're going to work from bottom to the top of the figure. So because the armour is actually different, these seem to be sort of clone commando shoulder pads. You've got a full thigh piece there, whereas in the Rebel version of the Bad Batch they sort of have like thigh guards more than anything that are strapped on. So what we're going to do to sort of simulate that is we're going to do a 50-50. I think it's like a reddish brown and a white on the inside of the thigh. So we'll be doing that there, and then we'll do the blue on the shoulder pads underneath this middle rim. Same for here, and yeah, we'll work from there. So just let me check the reference image. So looking at his shins, that is original Republic, but there's an orange. So we're going to start with Kalahari orange. And naturally, another annoying thing about this is you have to burst the top of the tube yourself. For some reason paint loves to dry in there. Who'd have thought that would have happened? So scale colours, if you're ever listening to this, sort your bloody bottles out. So a bit of Kalahari. We're then going to go up to Mars orange. And to really sell the highlights, because you know I love the high contrast on these pieces, bit of Soul yellow. So let's get our brush. Let's start with the Kalahari. So rather handily, they have sculpted this middle section stripe in. So it's very easy to just sort of have your brush at an angle and drag the tip up his shin, just catching that ridge, nothing else. Now if you do happen to catch anything else, don't worry. The best thing to do is while it's still wet, wash off your brush, go in while it's still a bit damp, and just start brushing it away. Rinse and repeat until it's gone. Solves everything. You may have to have like an orange stain, but really, that's not going to be a problem. So do both of these central stripes. So his left leg, his actual left, not my left, not the one I'm doing at the moment, it's obviously pointing down. So we're not going to go much above the Mars orange for that one. All I'm going to do is drag the Mars orange to where there's like a step a third of the way up. We'll drag the pigment down to highlight that. That's as far as we'll go with that side of the highlighting, because we want this side to be in shadow. So we're just going to make that Kalahari stand out. The bottom of the step I've only gone over with a very thin layer of Kalahari. That's just to keep that as deep of a shadow as we can. We'll just check if we've got to do his knees. We don't have to do his knees, so that saves us a job. Freehanding a stripe there. Do you know what we'll also do? So the other orange bits we've got on him, he's got the stripe up the centre of his helmet, and he's also got the stripe up the centre of his chest, so we might as well, while we've got the orange on the palette, let's get them blocked in as well, and then we'll be able to show you the extremes of the highlighting we want to do. So again, it's embossed, so we should be able to very easily just drag the paintbrush down. I do apologise for anyone who's waiting to see Crosshair, so they can do their Republic version. Unless you are desperate to skip ahead, I try and find it yourself. I will get Tom to put a bookmark or a timestamp in the video description, so that you can just jump ahead and see how to do the Republic versions of these. Essentially, skip everything I've done before this step, between the grey and these stripes, and do the stripes red. Is all you need to do different. The Bad Batch is relatively easy to do in their Republic colours. If you want to make the red pop, go to the Crosshair section and I will show you how to make red pop. We've got some very high saturation reds that we can play with. So I'm just checking the look of his helmet. Let's bring it over here so I have to keep stopping. So it's all of the sort of the mouthpiece. Up to where these air filtration tubes are. At least I believe that's what they are. You don't have to be precise. Now the beauty of doing armour is it gets bashed about a lot. And paint has a lovely habit of chipping. So if you don't cover all of the grey, it doesn't matter. It just looks like the paint's chipped off and you're seeing the grey underneath it. At the end of the day, this is a custom paint job that the Batch have done for themselves. So again, front of this helmet, this nose piece here, that is flattened, so we can easily keep in the lines there. Again, that would be a place where if I did go out of the lines, I could edge highlight it with a grey, just to bring it back in line. And then we've got this central stripe, which is quite wide on this picture, so I would do all of the raised details along here. I do apologise for the length of these videos. Obviously we're only on Hunter, so we've still got 5 other figures to do, so this will be quite large. I do appreciate you watching and feeding back. Once I can invest in some better equipment, some better editing techniques. I mean, Tom does all the editing, so once I actually pull my finger out and start editing my own videos, I might be able to sort of improve on how we present these, because I understand they can be a bit of a slog. We will be back to the shorter ones. It's just that because the Bad Batch have been released, we're quite keen to get this video out, so I'm spending the day at the painting table. So there we are, that is all the stripes base coated. So Hunter's backpack, from what I can tell of these pictures, is just plain grey. So we're going to add a bit of colour. This is me going off piste. You don't have to do the step if you don't want to, but this central stripe here, I would like to have a splash of colour on. This was never going to be the most accurate representation of the Bad Batch at this point in time, because the armour's all different. They haven't got the scarves and the belts and the buckles and the braces. You know, all of that stuff's missing from the model. So why not add another flash of colour? When you're painting it, it's important to remember that you're essentially spreading pigment. If you don't want the pigment to be in a certain space, brush away from that. So if I want a faded orange at the top of something and a bright orange at the bottom, I'll drag the brush down, and that will give you that illusion of fading to the top. Cool, so that is the orange planned out. So to highlight this, we're going to go in with some Mars orange and just mix that into the Kalahari to dull it down. Now I like to highlight like this with 50/50s. Go 50/50 Kalahari Mars, and then full Mars, then 50/50 Sol, full Sol. And that just helps to blend the transitions without giving you that hard border that you sometimes see. So again, I want this to be faded to the top, so I'm dragging the pigment down to where that step is. And then the same here where it flares out. Drag the pigment down. I don't know if you can make out, you can see like a little dark line there. That is the step that I've left unhighlighted and accents that feature on the model. Only when you look at it up close, it's not going to break any records for the most ingenious method. So with his chest, because this bit's facing up, we're going to highlight up And then again here, we want to be dragging the pigment towards the middle, towards that ridge on the mouth. And this is pretty much how I highlight all oranges. These three colours just work wonders. It's the same with reds. I'll use maybe 4 colours, 3 of them are reds, and then I'll add probably orange into the final red just to boost it a little bit. Depends what sort of red you're going for, I suppose. So I'm going to drag the pigment down, and then for this one we'll try and keep to the 3 parts of this ridge. So, pigment towards the middle, sort of want it towards the top of his head. And if we can, we want to leave a strip of Kalahari in between these 2 bits here. Again, it's all about accentuating those features. Put the teeth in. There we go. And then for the last one, we've got quite a wide flat surface, so you essentially want to pick which way you want your reflections to go. I've got an example of a finished one here. So this was on a Clone Commando. You can see I've done the highlight towards this edge and then towards this edge, and I've done the highlight here to meet in the middle. So that's what we're essentially going to try and achieve here. So we're going to go towards this edge, drag the pigment down, try not to drag your brush over the edge, because then you're just going to get you're going to blur the difference between those bits. And there, and then drag up, because this is where we want to highlight the ridge. And that's that. So let's go in with Pure Mars. So this is the last highlight we're going to put on this leg. It's just a tiny little one right down there at the bottom of each of them stripes. And for this one we're going to do a bigger one because we're going to introduce that yellow. Same again here, bigger highlight to allow us to use that yellow to really boost the saturation. And same again here, drag it towards the middle, leaving a little bit of the previous layer showing underneath. Down. And drag towards the middle. Same principle. Smaller area. Drag it towards that edge. There we go. So if you want to leave it as pure orange, this is where I'd stop. I'd probably go in with one more Mars just to reinforce it. Other than that, mix a little bit of Soul Yellow in, bring us to a more yellowy orange. Drag it into there. These are quite difficult colours to get right. It takes a bit of experimenting to find what works for you. You may look at this and go, actually, that's not how I want my oranges to look. I'll find a different way, a better way. That's ultimately what this is all about, is experimenting. This is not an exact science, it's not a science that works for everyone. Now the only place I'm going to go in again, I think the leg's fine because it's still slightly tilted towards the ground. I think we need a bigger highlight at the top of this chest piece. Just about there. Face and the top of the helmet. These are the places that are getting the most light. You'll see the same principle applied when I do, I've got a land speeder that Killy, one of our Patreons, has Patreon supporter, he's provided us with a land speeder to paint. So I'll be recreating the airspeeder design that we did earlier in the year for our giveaway. So I'll be using these warm oranges and yellows again to replicate that look. But you'll see how I do that with a sponge. And that we can pretty much paint that with a sponge. This is more precise work, so unfortunately I have to use a brush. I'm a big advocate for using sponges and other cheating methods. That's not cheating, but easier methods. Not everyone can control the brush. So, sponges make it more accessible. And there we go. That is all the orange bits highlighted. That is where I would leave this. Gives us a nice contrast against the grey. So, next thing we're going to tackle are these thighs. So, what have I got written down? Right leg, it's Nakar. Okay. So we are going to find our Nakar. There it is. So Nakar's like a really dull grey, dirty white sort of thing. And Dectan from Vallejo is a bit of a warmer colour. Just try and find the right one to match to a base coat. It's not terrible. Let's go with that. So what we're going to do is we're going to go in with this first, which is blue-grey pale. Now I use this on a lot of my white undercoats, of which I have none to hand. Oh yes, I do. So this is a griffin that I'm painting for a friend, and you can see I've started painting the white feathers, and it's a base coat of this blue-grey pale. So it is quite blue. It's in the name really, blue and grey. And then I've washed it with apothecary white, just to bring the shadows out again. But I'll then end up going back over it with this, and then introducing white into it, and that'll give you a nice sort of colour shift from blue into the white. So we're going to do something similar with that now, where we go blue-grey pale. And we'll get some Nakar out while we're here. So this Nakar's going to leave us with like an off-white, dirty white. And what I might do to highlight it is just to introduce some ivory. I wouldn't go white because that's going to really take some of the punch of the colour out. So let's start with blue-grey pale. So I'm going to do it half and half, because looking at this picture, it's not the clearest of pictures. I'm going to just look at this. So we've got Black Series Toy here. And essentially what we've got is we've got this thigh being Republic and this thigh being white. So we'll do this whole thigh with blue-grey pale. I do recommend thinning this one because it can be quite streaky. The best way to combat that is thin it down and do a couple of thin coats. Let's give us some nice variation across this model. I wouldn't worry too much about going underneath, because this blue-grey pale is not too far from the graphite we've used. So sitting that in the shadows is not going to be the end of the world. Sort of where you would expect the the white to shift to a greyish blue. If you're ever unsure on how a colour's gonna react, so whites, for example, a good example. If you've got something that is white, so I would use something like this lid. It's a good option. Hold it in different lights and see for yourself what the colour shift is. And while we're here, let's get these shoulder pads looking like they're ready to go. So you can see how watery it is. You can still see a bit of the white underneath, but we're giving it that greyish shadow. Really taking you guys on a proper painting process today, aren't I? It's more of a paint along than a tutorial. Cool. So you can see there is a difference. We've got a white undercoat here and we're seeing more grey, which is perfectly fine because we're going to get more light on top anyway. So that's why we aren't bothered to see the difference in that colour and that colour. But to bring it up again, go in with our second thin coat. I hope that's not treading on any other painter's toes by suggesting 2 thin coats. I do suggest 2 thin coats. I've not actually had the chance to try those paints, but I have heard nothing but good things from them. The benefit of it is, so like how we were doing this, if you go to that range and you say I want a yellow, they'll give you your base, your highlight, and so it's like a triad system, which for someone starting out is exactly what you need. I remember using the Games Workshop triads to paint a lot of my stuff when I was starting out. Found them incredibly helpful. Builds your confidence that you can then go, actually I'm going to try a different brand, I'm going to see what AK Interactive's like, I'm going to see what scale colours are like, and you sort of sit in your niche at that point. And I feel like my niche is this high contrast, arty sort of feel. You know, nothing's perfect, but damn, it looks good when you get that high contrast popping out. That's not me blowing my own trumpet. That's an opinion. You may disagree. You may think that more realistic, gritty stuff is more appealing. I would be inclined to agree with you as well. That's why I've tried to do my ATSTs a bit more realistic. So, in with some nacre, let's start bringing this thigh up to a more white. So really thin. Anywhere that light is going to hit gets this layer. So the very underneath is not going to get any. The side and the top is. Like that. Now you will start seeing the blue-grey pale underneath showing through. So we'll wait for that to dry. We'll go in with the same mix, reinforce it, but we'll reinforce it a little bit further up. So because the blue-grey pale is showing through, it's going to give us a nice natural blend. You'll notice I have done 0 blending on this figure, and that's by design. I pride myself on cutting corners where I can. If you can achieve a good result with less effort, why would you not do that? So let's go back over this. It's a really lazy ethos, wasn't it? Oh well. Life does get in the way, so if you can get these done as quickly as possible, why not? I realise that after spending quite a few hours on Hunter already. It's not often we get a fan favourite unit come out like this, so let's look after them. Obviously these guys have still got their skulls and things on their armour. You can, if you want to remove them, just take a hobby knife and slice it off, create a flat surface. I'm fine with keeping them on. At the end of the day, the armour is not the same. So these differences are to be expected. And then we can just reinforce that pale colour there. So you can start to see how we're getting the difference between the two thighs now. Do need to come up with a snappy name for this series. I was thinking like shortcut paints or shortcut tutorial. You know, I try and make these easy so that they're achievable. But yeah, if anyone's got any suggestions, drop them in the Discord or drop them in the comment section below this video. And yeah, we'll probably pick a suggestion. I think it'd be good to have a series name to tie these all together. My imagination is shot. Having to entertain a 2-year-old for bank holiday weekend has stripped me of all my imagination. Okay, so now that that's dried, let's get some more nacre into that mix. Because they're such fickle colours, we are taking more time to highlight this one. They can be quite transparent, they can dry too quickly, they can dry too slow. You never know where you stand with them. However, I don't think that's turning out too bad. Yeah, you're not going to see the professionalism that you get from the likes of Duncan Rhodes and Sarastro. They are far too good at the whole YouTube game for me to even consider trying to do it on that level. So you're going to have to make do with me just talking and going at it. So rather than make you watch me go through this process again and again and again and again, all I'm going to do is I'm going to take those colours that we've been mixing here, apply it to the shoulder pads, doing similar thing to what we did to the backpack. So I'll be dragging the side panels to the bottom, to the front edge, and then the middle panels will go to the middle. And that'll sort of give us that difference in reflectivity across the shoulder pads. And then again here, I'm just going to keep dragging it more towards the front because you've got his arm and his chest sort of blocking this top end. So we'll start dragging the paint towards his knee. But I'll do that off camera, and then we'll come back. Okay, so thigh is complete. Nice smooth transition up to the ivory at the top of the thigh. We've also done the shoulder pads. So there's a bit of highlighting on there as well. There is one more piece of this colour that we need to use, and that is on the skull on his helmet. So we're going to attempt that now. While I was doing that, I did speak to Tom. This will now be released as a series, just because of the amount we are having to do on each character. Sorry. Yeah, so this is going to be a hunter video with basing, doing the great basing on each of them. Yeah, so they'll all be released at the same time. I'm hoping to get them all painted today so that you guys can enjoy it over the week. Get ready for any events you've got at the weekend. We did do one other touch up of Nakar, and that is on these little strips that stick out from under the fan braces. The reason I'm doing that is because in the reference image I've got, he's got sort of wraps around his van braces. So to emulate that, I'm going to paint the majority of the van brace this reddish brown, and then the Nakar sticks out at the bottom. So unusual but good reference image is the Black Series figure. It shows you where everything is. The only thing I think is wrong is I'm not sure if he does have a shin pad or not, but who knows. We're going to do his waistband blue, similar to that. We're going to do the shoulder pads now, and then you'll notice that this armband here is brown. So we'll also do that, and then we'll tackle the skull. So for our blue, we need sort of a medium-ish blue. That's going to be one of our highlight tones. That's going to be the upper highlight tone. Just picked up a cobweb from somewhere. I haven't painted blue in a while, apparently. We're also going to use Teneri yellow. This is a really good way of just highlighting the points of anything that's blue, especially this kind of blue. And then if that's Mediterranean, that is Mediterranean. That's going to be our base colour. So let's get into that. Bit of Mediterranean. Next one up is Adriatic. Top one, Caribbean. We're going to do this much the same as the orange, where we introduce a tiny bit of the next colour into the bottom colour. And there's the yellow. Okay, so base colour. So we are going in with the Mediterranean. It's quite a thick paint. Make sure you do get some water on it. Still quite thick. Okay, so the bit I'm going to focus on, let's have a look at the reference. So we're going to go here. So you can see he's got like vertical segments That's the bit that's going to be blue. So try not to paint in the gaps, because we do still want to have that definition between them. Well, they still look more like padding than armour segments. I do want to thank you if you've stuck around this long to watch this. It's not the easiest watch when it's filmed on a phone, I understand that, but I appreciate the support nonetheless. So there's the blue. Now we hit the shoulder pads. So like we said, it's this bottom bit here. So try not to hit what we've painted already. Now on a white prime, or a white base coat in this case, these blues are quite transparent. So we may need to take a couple of coats to this one. Let's just make sure it's don't want any white showing underneath it. And on the next one. My hand fists. That's the blue. Let's introduce the Adriatic into the Mediterranean blue. And then we're just going to hit. Remember what we said about dragging your pigment to the desired area? We're going to drag it down. Excuse me. Drag it down so that we're leaving the darker blues at the top. Do that for all the segments. So there's waistband here. We're going to come in with brown. We're going to do it the same colour as, I believe we're doing it the same colour as the, as the armband. So we'll do all that when we get to using that colour. We'll go right around the back as well. Again, break up the armour pieces, make it look like there's something underneath it, give it more substance. Make this look like it's a bit more cobbled together. A bit more like they're on the run, I suppose. So for the shoulder pads, we really want the brightest highlight to be in the middle. So drag your pigment in that direction. Cool. Straight into the Adriatic. Now you're starting to see why my brushes get destroyed. There's something hardwired in me that you start a task like this where you're doing these blues or the oranges and you just think, just get your brush straight back in, let's go. No time for cleaning. It's the wrong attitude to have, so make sure you're cleaning your brushes if you want to look after them. And you don't want to be a complete ape like me. So we need to be making sure the majority of these shoulder pads are coming up to a sort of a turquoisey blue colour, leaving a lot of the Mediterranean behind. We just need that as the base coat, really. And then we're going to get our brush and we're going to bring Caribbean into the Adriatic. Drag down. Sorry, I whispered that, didn't I? Yeah, so drag your pigment down. That was my concentrating voice. Oh, blimey. Terrible presenter. Let me know how you're finding the camera angle. I've moved the camera a bit closer to the palette. I'm hoping that means it keeps it in focus and it keeps it in frame a bit more for you. Any feedback is always appreciated. Just keep it polite. If it's negative, we don't need to be nasty or rude. There's too much of that in the world as it is. At the end of the day, these videos are for you guys, so if you think something could work better, you let me know. I will do my absolute best to make it so, Captain. That's not the quote, is it? I'm not a Trekkie. I really dropped the ball there. I apologise to any Trekkies listening. But maybe you should be part of a better fandom. Like Star Wars. We have laser swords and Death Stars and yeah, pretty cool people. Imagine following one crew around when you've got the whole galaxy to explore. Anyway, enough bashing Trekkies. Right, so now that we've hit the Caribbean, let's add a little bit of Teneri yellow in, and you can start to see that we're getting to that really pale blue there. Now I'm reluctant to do much more than just catch the bottom edges of these panels here, just to separate them out a bit. And that is all I'm now leaving that because I want it to look a bit of a different material to what we've got up here. So again, focusing on the middle of this armour piece. Same again here. And we're just going to keep adding more and more yellow. The more layers we get here, the better the illusion of reflection, of light. But at any point, if you feel like, actually that's the blue I wanted to achieve, you stop right there. Because once again, it's your miniature. I'm not going to be playing with it. It's you. Or, you'll be entering it into your painting competitions and running it with your army. If this doesn't work for you, you adapt it. I think that is the last layer. You've got to strike the balance where you're not tipping into green, but you're still keeping an element of the blue. wash the brush and then we'll show you. So there we go. And you can see the difference in the blue there to the blue there. There we go. That's his shoulder pads done. So we're romping on through, so let's carry on. So let's do the brown next. So we're going to have two different types of brown. The first brown is going to be more of a pale brown. Actually, that's quite a nice brown there. So we'll go with that. So we're going to go, yeah, let's do that. We'll experiment on the fly. It's a good job we're doing this over separate episodes as well, because I'm running out of space on the palette. Quite a messy painter, as you can tell. Enamel paints are the worst for going everywhere. So, bit of brown leather from Scale Colours. That's going to be our base coat. It's quite a rich brown. And then I've got this one that came with a basing pack that Scale Colours do. It had some tufts and has this winter ground in, which I swear by now. I hunt this down whenever I can. Yeah, and some like tubed paints to paint that, and came with this brown as well. So let's see if it. Yep, there we go. So this surface here, we're going to be painting this armband, and we're going to paint this middle section here with this brown, and then we'll come on to the fan braces after. So straight in with brown leather. Just coat everything, and as we discussed in the priming step of this, right at the start, if you can remember that far back, I appreciate it has been a hell of a video, lengthwise. The reason we go black is because if you can't get your brush into that nook there, you're not going to see it. So you don't have to stress about jabbing a brush in there, hitting something you've already highlighted, and then stressing about having to match your highlight again, just to cover up that mistake. So again, missing the panel lines. To be fair, this should be the one that takes the longest. The others, maybe Tech, he's quite detailed. Or Echo. But Rekka's quite simple. Omega's quite simple, it's just her clothes and the... I'll show you how to do a bit of non-metallic metal gold. I can't remember if I've shown you that already. But yeah, we'll do a bit of that for her bow. It's very simple, very effective. It's one of the easiest non-metallics that you can do, and sell the illusion quite well, actually. So we're just introducing... Oh, sorry, I don't think I told you what the colour was we were using. There it is. It's called US Dark Brown, SW51, from the Warfront range that Scale Colours do. They do quite a few different ranges. We've just done a 50-50 mix of that and the brown leather. We're just going over anything that's exposed. Bring it up to a level. There we go. Right, now let's go pure US brown. Not hitting the underside, not hitting in the crease, just where sunlight, or any light for that matter, is gonna hit this part of the armour. Just gonna go bring the pigment to his sides. We're not going to go too far under. It's going to be blocked out by the backpack. And same on this side, you probably just get a little hint there. Wash that off. So now there's not a great difference between, so we don't have a great deal of contrast on those brown bits. So let's introduce a skin tone. So I'm going to use basic flesh, sort of like a beigey pink. Let's pop that there. You just want a small amount just to start lightening it. Now I don't know the colour theory reason to why that works. There's just a bit of experimentation a while back. I found that it produces quite a nice pale brown. Remember what we said earlier, leave some of the previous highlights showing. Drag your pigment to where you want to see that highlight. So I'll add a bit more flesh. So here, probably looking in line with the highlight on the blue armour. And then here, drag it towards that edge. Hit the top edge of it just to give it a bit of a contrast. And again here. We'll do one more just to edge highlight. So we've got this bit here that's got a bit more of the flesh in. much water. There we go. We just hit that top edge there, down this side, top edge there, and down this side here. And that's it. That's as far as I'd want to take that brown. So for the other brown, we're going to go back in with the brown leather. Now I'm going to leave some bits untouched. So this ridge here on the top of his arm, I'm just going to leave. And we're going to try and leave the panel lines as well. Maybe a bit more difficult in there, but we'll do our best. A bit easier here. We're going to leave this section here where his knife slots into, as well as the ridge that we have on the other arm. That's also present. I do that just to break up all this brown. There we go. So because this is more of a reddish brown, we're going to go in with a couple of different colours. So first one, once I find it in the sea of pots that I've got here, it is called, I think it's Tinderlose Red. And it's more of a deep red leathery colour that I cannot see for the life of me. Cavalry brown, that's because it's laying down. There we are. Sorry, sharpnel red. There we go. That is sharpnel, not shrapnel. So you don't spend ages looking for it online. Comes out very quick apparently. Touch of brown leather, touch of sharpnel. And let's just go straight in, start highlighting these upturned edges. So it's just going to boost that colour saturation again to give us a nice base coat. Careful of the shoulder pad there. And introduce some more sharpnel. Almost pure sharpnel here. This is where having those panel lines will help. You can follow them to give yourself some interest on the arms instead of them being just a block colour. Can just take care here. We're very nearly at the end. We don't want to ruin it now. Just going to do another layer of sharpening just to reinforce the colour. It's quite a rich brownish red. It's really nice to work with, actually. I remember painting a Star-Lord for MCP many moons ago now, and this is the perfect colour for his red leather jacket. So I'm going to go back to the Kalahari now. I'm going to bring a bit of that in for the highlight. And all we're going to do is find the edge, top edge of that panel there, top edge there, and the edge along that ridge there. For this side, we're going to go along the bottom. So that's another important thing to remember is when someone's got their arm up, especially on something like this, you've got something above it. So this bit up here is not going to have the most highlight. If I do that, I'll put it in, you can see that my wrist is actually in shadow, but down here I'm catching more light because that's where it's wider. It's the same principle. A bit more of a highlight at the bottom sells that illusion of putting your fist up to the light source. So, touch more Kalahari. I'm going to put a tiny dollop of Tenera in there, the yellow we've been using on the blue, just to give it a little bit of pale desaturation. And this is just going to be the very edge like that. Again on the bottom. And on the bottom there. And there. It's very subtle. It's not a big piece of the armour, but it does give it, you can see there's a clear difference between the armband and his forearm there. And that's all we're looking for. We're looking for variation across the figure. So, let's get his hands done, get his weapons done, and then the skull, and then that is it. What I will do is I'll just grab a bit of white. Highly recommend this white, Procreal white, Bold Titanium white. You can hear it's quite watery already. And this, I swear by this, as a white colour to use. Some of the others, they could be quite chalky, they're quite thick. This one is ready to go from the pot near enough. So, if you look how gently I'm scraping that on my hand. Gives us quite a nice Nice finish. And all we're going to do is just going to go and touch that skull with a bit of this. So that just make it stand out against the blue-grey pale and nacre mix that we've been working with. That's all that sidetrack was. So let's have a look at his hands on this reference image. So we've got one pale, one grey. Simple. So it's going to be the exact same as before. Go in with the blue-grey pale on this side. So his knife hand has the white handguard. The other side, we're just going to leave it because it's the grey that we've been using for the rest of the armour. So that's nice and easy, isn't it? Take the nacre. We're not going to do too many highlights here. This is a 50-50 mix. Going to drag it up towards the top of the hand where his fingers are. Full nacre. And a touch of ivory. That ivory is just going to go right across the front and also on this edge. Such a minor detail, but it's tying the figure together quite nicely. So, weapons. Sorry, hands first. Got you all excited there for some weapons. We're going to go for two dark blues. If I find the other one, we're looking for anthracite blue, or anthracite grey, I think it's called. Is it one of the ones that we've run out of? I hope not. It's beyond me. What's that? Caspian? No. Navy? No. Really help if I got some paint racks, but I'm due to move rooms early next year / late next year, so I don't want to get too well established in here. Okay, we can work with this anyway. So abyssal blue. We don't want it too, I know the cartoonish look is a very pale blue, sort of similar to the armour blue that we've been doing. However, let's make this more realistic. So just painting all of his fingers very carefully, try not to hit the knife, because we are going to be using contrast paints there soon. The last thing we want is some blue sat underneath a contrast paint. There we go. Actually, that looks better than using the anthracite. I think that would have been too pale. So the Vallejo equivalent, probably looking at, it's either dark sea blue or deep sea blue, one or the other. Probably dark sea blue. That would work just fine for this. And just his thumb. Perfect. all I'm going to do is I'm going to do one simple highlight. Take some of your ivory. This is white sands. Tiny dollop in to about there. We want to be looking just on the tips of fingers, knuckles, that sort of thing. Moving away from the camera and the light. There's a knuckle, there's a knuckle. Top, 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 top. Knuckle, tip of his finger, tip of his finger, tip of his finger, tip of his finger. Same over here. Knuckle, 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 knuckle. Tops of the fingers. We've done the tip of his thumb. I wouldn't want to push that anymore. Dark leather gloves, no matter what colour they are, except for brown. I don't like to highlight too much. You can detract from the rest of the figure, and at the end of the day, we want these blues and oranges to be the standout point. So now we're going to move on to the weapons. So we've got 2 contrast paints, Basilicanum Grey, Black Templar. Just get a dry palette. Black palettes really aren't useful for contrast paints because they sort of soak through a bit of. Oh, look at that. Beautiful. Fantastic. Bit of ASMR for you. Put that in the bin. More coming. It's got a gold member. I'm peeling. I'm peeling. Okay. So, on our freshly cleaned palette, basically going to do a 50-50 mix of these 2 contrast paints. So it's only a small area. So 1, 2. I do the very scientific method of paintbrush loads. So 2 paintbrush loads of Basilicanum and 2 paintbrush loads of Black Templar. Mix them together. This is where we see if our highlights have held or if they were lost in the sponging. Either way. So I need to have a look at his knife. I think what we're going to do is we're going to go over it all because the white of the knife will show through better. And then all we've got to do is do the yellow edge highlight. Yeah, cool. So load up your contrast. We'll hit the pistol first. Try to avoid the gloves you've just busted your eyes painting. The important thing with contrast paint is to move it around. Don't go in like it's acrylic paint because it doesn't behave the same way. It will instantly start drying, and if you catch it when it's gone too far along, you're going to end up pulling it away and be left with a sort of like a ring. So you can see there the natural highlights are doing their job. Onto the knife. So because this is a flat surface, it should behave slightly differently to pistol. You can already see it is. So, got a little too much there, so I'm just going to take a damp brush and wick it away. The contrast paint will always flow to the lowest point, so if I wanted it near the hilt, you can just hold it like that, and you'll see that the paint starts to flow back down towards the hilt. You can always help it along as well. So I'm just going to get a bit ham-fisted with it. And scrape it off of the edges, because that's where we're going to put the energy. Tip it this way a little bit so it starts seeping down a bit. Basically, while this is drying, we're gonna hit this skull, and then the final detail will be that yellow edge, which we'll just use the yellows we've got the palette for. So let's get pointy brush. So looking at reference images, so we're basically taking this side of the helmet, leaving a grey arch over the ear, and then we're coming down around the eye, forming like a T shaped here, and then back under the eye and down halfway. So now that we've got that in our heads, we're going to get the blue-grey pale. And when you do a freehand, having free-flowing paints is key. So let's just attack it. This doesn't matter if it's a bit scratchy. It does not have to be perfect either. The fact that you are about to attempt freehand, no matter what level you are, it's always a challenge. It's always a learning experience. You will always learn something. You'll have to forgive me for being quiet at this point. It does take a little bit of concentration. With my limited brain power, what with being quite thick and all, it does take some concentration. There we go. And then coming down here, so we know the easiest part to do is going to be from the corner of the eye to the halfway point here. So we can fill that in. Then sort of juts out there. follows the eye line to the corner. And that's the skull. Doesn't look very impressive because we are still in the sketching phase. So now let's take our NACAR, a little bit of blue pale, and let's confirm that shape. The way we do this is we just go back over what we've done. This reaffirms this is the shape we want. We are not going back now. Remember to move your pigments around. And once you're happy, let's go for pure NACAR. This is a step you can follow for the Republic one. Just remember what I said about it being scratchy. At the end of the day, Hunter has painted this on himself, so it's not going to be perfect. It's, this is the limitations of him as well as me. Need to focus the highlights around the eye. The bottom of the cheek sort of scoops out a little bit more, so that can have more of a highlight than the others. And tip them upside down just so we can get in that crevice there. Forgive me for putting my head in the way. There we go. Yeah, I just wanted that to look a little sharper. It was looking quite rounded, as if someone couldn't get a brush in there. I.e. me. I really do rate this NACAR paint. It's a very nice way of just getting that really grubby look on a white. Let's introduce some ivory. Bring it up onto the edges, especially around the eye. the top of the head especially will have some sort of reflection. I won't push it too far because it's meant to be paint at the end of the day that's on this helmet, so it's not gonna, I know we've pushed the orange, but orange does tend to stand out a bit more. Plus that is the focus point. As we've been saying, it's important to sort of pick your focal point. What do you want your viewers to see when they look at your miniature? If the answer to that is the weapons, highlight the weapons. If the answer to that is the grey, highlight the grey. So that's the skull. I'm very happy with that. You can see there is a nice contrast to the other side of his helmet. So, the last thing to do is his knife. For that, let's take some Sol. I'm just going to roll the brush around in it because we're just going to edge highlight. I'm not going to go all the way to the serrations. We're just going to do the blade edge. So, when viewed from above, it's nice and subtle. And there it is. So keep going over until you've got a nice firm base coat covering that. So we are going to introduce some Tenera. May take a few coats, just because we put that very dark contrast. The front edge is taken quite nicely. So let's go with our Tenera. Pick up a bit of Sol. And just pick where you want the highlight to be. You don't have to do the full length. So on the back, I'm going to draw it down to the tip. And on the front, we're going to keep it very central to where the blade curves. It's that case of dragging it in. We're going to use white because we really want contrast. It's quite hard to see contrast in yellow, especially when the two yellows are quite close. So I'll add a bit of white in there. Add a bit of white at the back. Really want this front edge to look good. This is the face. This is the side that your opponent's going to see. This is the side that anyone looking at you on a painting competition is going to look at. So if it's not right, you'll do what I do, not be pleased with it, and have to either strip the model and repaint it, or buy another one. That's if you're as critical as I am. But so a bit of pure white. I'm my biggest critic. And there we go. ladies and gentlemen, is that. Thank you very much for your patience. And that is Hunter from Season 2 of Bad Batch. Thank you again for watching. I hope you found this useful. I hope you found it inspiring to go and push your limits with highlighting and freehand and working with whites. There we go. That's episode 1. I will move on to the next 5 now. We'll probably do Wrecker next. Link that into Omega, Omega into Echo, Echo into Tech, and then finally Crosshair. And hopefully you'll have all these very soon. So, thank you again. Goodbye.
That's no moon.